Okay, live.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today's debate should be very interesting as it poses two very different philosophical views of understanding reality. Subjectivism versus objectivism. Hello, everyone. My name is Carlos Urrutia, and I will be the moderator of this event. The debaters are Mike Benoit, who ran for Congress and politically is a believer in limited government, and Jan Helfeld, also a believer in limited government, is dedicated to interviewing high-profile personalities using the Socratic method to demonstrate contradictions in their thinking. In this debate, Mr. Benoit will be the affirmative and Mr. Helfeld the negative. Mr. Benoit will defend subjectivism, meaning the following. Reality exists simply because of agreement. There are no absolutes. Two contradictory conclusions can both be true, and 2 plus 2 equals 4 is not always true. On the other hand, Mr. Helfeld will defend objectivism, meaning reality is what it is, independent of what anybody thinks or agrees. There are absolutes. Two contradictory conclusions cannot both be true, and 2 plus 2 equals 4 and is always true. Before yielding the floor for the debaters, I am stating as moderator that my position is in favor of the negative, that is of objectivism, but that will not interfere with my unbiased role as judge to enforce the rules of the debate. Hello, hello, Mike and Jan, and now I yield the floor to Mike Benoit, who will begin the debate with his main statement, after which Mr. Helfeld will follow.
All right, thank you very much, Carlos. I'm going to start off with making a statement that there's over 7 billion universes on the planet right now. And that's all the individuals on the planet. They each have their own independent universe, and they each and every one see the world in a different light. No two people see the world the same, because we're all occupying different points in the universe, or points on this planet. So, and then one must be a subjectivist if they're going to believe in God. And so the other point of view would be an atheist, and that would be that matter and objects came before a subjective reality. In other words, effect was always here, and cause never existed. That effect happens to affect effect. Now, the idea that there is a creator is a subjective idea. It's an idea that a subjective reality created reality. In other words, a reality that was not as we're used to seeing, matter, space, energy, and time. That from the subjective, from the great cause, all other things were created. So therefore, before matter, there was what? There was subjective reality. And it wasn't matter, it wasn't effect, it was the omnipotent power that created the universe. Now, when we look at this universe that was created, maybe it was created, if you want to say, by one being, or those that want to have the concept that it was created by more than one being, and it's still created by beings that are not within the terminology that we use for matter, and so, or objectivism. So that's going to be probably the crux of this debate. The difficulty of this debate will be in determining whether or not there was a cause before there was an effect, and so, and then how we view these things. Even when we look at matter, if we observe a coffee cup, what we're seeing is not what the coffee cup is at the instant we're seeing it. We're seeing it a fraction of the time. It's altered at the time and place where we perceive this coffee cup. It has altered from what it was when the image first started coming towards us. Everything that is matter is in motion. It's changing. And so we never actually see something that would be actually the reality at the same time that we're seeing it. So we're seeing a perception of what was, because of that millisecond of time it takes to reach our consciousness. So the idea of absolutes, there are no absolutes. Yeah, there are no absolutes unless you limit all the possible variables, and then you have absolutes. For example, if you say, if I reach out and put my arm out, extend my arm, and I have a ball in it, and I want to drop that ball will go to the ground where we're standing on Earth. But if we're out in space, that ball will just float. It won't go and drop to the ground. So this gives you an example that the ball will not absolutely drop to the ground. Now, if we limit the conditions and say, well, okay, you're on Earth, and you reach out and you drop the ball, it's going to hit the ground. Then you say, okay, that's an absolute, that'll happen every time. But that's limiting the parameters. And so therefore, when you want to get absolutes, then you have to limit the parameters. And even the absolute that there's cause and effect, you do have to agree that there's cause and effect. And therefore, if you agree to that, then you do have an absolute. As far as conditions of two contradictory conditions existing at the same time, you can not necessarily they can exist. You can have two contradictory conclusions. They can be made by two different people. For example, somebody's sitting there watching the baseball game and he's saying it's a great game, and the other person watching the game says, "Oh, this game sucks." Well, you got two contradictory opinions, and they exist at the same time. Now, you can also have two contradictory opinions within the same individual. They can at one moment say, well, this food is great, and then all of a sudden something sour or rotten hits their taste buds, and they go, oh, this food stinks. And so within a millisecond, with a fraction of time, the person's contradictory conclusions both were true, and they both were viewpoints. So, and then the idea that 2 and 2 is always 4. You have to, again, limit the parameters. You have to say, well, we're going to add 2 of the same thing. And then when we add 2 of the same thing, we're also going to limit the time. If you don't, you could have an example where you add one person, a female, to another person, a male, and then you end up with 2 people in the instant that you add the 2 together. But if you give some time to this, then as say a year later, then that 1 and 1 is no longer 2. That 1 and 1 might be 3. And or you could use the same example if you take one human embryo or one human egg and you add to it 100,000 sperm cells. You're not going to end up with 100,001. You might end up with one human being. So unless you limit the parameters, you can come up with different results in mathematics. And in mathematics, you can use 2 plus minus 2 is not 4. 2 plus minus 2 is 0. And so when you're dealing with absolutes, even in dealing with absolutes, you have parameters. So my hypothesis is that for all this material in this universe to exist, it first existed in a subjective reality, the creator, or if you want, multiple creators. When we take a piece of matter that has been created and we alter it into something else, we see a new creation. For example, someone takes a tree and shapes the parts of the tree into a chair. We have a creator that has changed and altered. But first in that mind, the chair didn't exist first. The concept of the chair existed first. And so the very first molecule or atom existed in the consciousness of a creator, which is, and the creator would not be what we're used to looking at, which are atoms put together into the shapes and considerations. I don't know exactly how much time I put in, but I think that covers my position satisfactory. So we'll pass the baton off to Jen now.
Thank you, Mike.
Hi. First of all, thank you for doing the debate. And let me say quickly a few things that I disagree with. You say there's 7 billion universes. The word universe means everything that exists. There's just one. Whatever exists, exists, and that's the universe. So there can't be 7 billion. There's just what exists and nothing. Nothing is nothing, so it's not an alternative. As far as all these views being different, everybody's views being different, well, people can have different views, but things are what they are. Facts are facts, and either they got it right or they got it wrong. The fact that there's many different views has nothing to do with what the truth is. It just is a fact that people do disagree on things, like we're disagreeing now. When you say that the change demonstrates that there isn't any objective truth, that things aren't what they are, in fact, change demonstrates the exact opposite. In order for something to change, it had to be something specific at one point in time, and then it changed to something else that was also specific. So change, instead of, say, proving that everything is in flux and that you can't know the identity of anything, proves exactly the opposite. You say that you believe that there are no absolutes, but in your statement, it's full of absolutes. This is the case, that's the case, this is the case. They're all absolutes. How the universe was created, contradictory view as I understood it, that it's created by one God and it's created by multiple creators, one creator, multiple creators. Anyway, let me get back to the objectivist point of view, which is that see, objectivism starts with the fundamental axioms that are at the base of all knowledge and teases out the corollaries and implications of these axioms. It's important in a philosophy to start with the right starting point, and objectivism starts with the concept existence. Existence exists. That is a fundamental fact that's undeniable, and everybody has to accept, even the people that try to refute it. Now, existence exists means that there is a reality, that there is an existence, that there is a universe. Universe meaning everything that exists. That is given to you when you have your first percept, or when you open your eyes and you see the world. You see that there is, it is. It is not that it isn't, it is. There is something. This is existence. And it is a fundamental on which all knowledge is based. Now, when you open your eyes, you notice that the first open your eyes, or first sensations, that there are entities. The world is full of entities. And these entities have identity. Now, this fact of that there are entities is given to you directly by sense perception. It is self-evident. There's no proof of this. It is the beginning on which all proof is based. It is self-evident that there is an existence. When you open your eyes, you're aware of this basic fact of reality. And as I said, these entities have characteristics. That means that they have an identity. They are in a certain way. That's the second axiomatic concept, and the axiom is things are what they are. They have an identity. They aren't all the characteristics. They have some characteristics, but not all the characteristics. This is what you notice immediately when you open up your eyes. Everybody does, and you can check it out yourself by trying to do the same. Now, the next axiomatic concept is consciousness, and the axiom is consciousness is conscious. That means that we are aware of a world that exists. We are aware. And Ayn Rand, the founder and creator of Objectivism, stated this in a brilliant way in summarized in one sentence. There is something I am aware of. There is means that it exists. There is, as opposed to there isn't. Something. It's some kind of thing. It is in a certain way. It has an identity. And I am aware of it. These are the fundamental axioms on which objectivist metaphysics is based, and in order to get a good start and understand everything else in life, that's where you need to start. Now, subjectivism is the view that the subject is the one who determines the truth. The truth is not independent of the subject, that the subject determines the truth. And there's two kinds of subjectivisms. One is the individual, where the individual says, this is true because I say it's true. Then there is the collective subjectivist. This is true because we think it's true, or we agree it's true. And so it's always a consciousness of some kind, either the individual, the group, or a divine consciousness that is the creator and determines everything that exists and the way it is. Now, subjectivism is in conflict with these basic truths, these basic axioms that objectivism has identified: existence, identity, and consciousness. It is claiming the contrary. And the basic corollary that objectivism has identified is the corollary that existence is primary. The primacy of existence, which means that existence comes first, and it is independent of what people think or don't think, people agree or don't agree. It is the one that sets the terms. Now, identifying the proper relationship between your mind, your consciousness, and reality, the existence on the other hand, is fundamental in order to identify further truths about the world and what to do, and etc. The right role of consciousness is to find out how things are, to know what existence is, how it is, not to create existence, but to know it. And in order to know it, you have to follow it. So existence is the independent factor, and consciousness has to follow it in order to be accurate. In order to know something, you have to know how it is. That's what it is to know. So basically, this view was stated brilliantly by Francis Bacon many years ago, when he said, nature, to be commanded, must be obeyed. That is the basis for science. In other words, to know what to do, in other words, to command nature, you first have to obey it and know how it is. Once you follow that view and you try to know how things are, then you can know what to do, because you know how things are, and you can enact the effects that you need to have a happy, long life. Now, let's deal with one of Mike's subjectivist views, which is reality exists simply because of agreement. This is pure subjectivism. It means that reality does not exist independently. It depends on agreement. So if this is what subjectivism is. If a group agrees, depending on whichever group, the Americans, the mankind, whichever one you want to pick, think something is true, that's what makes it true. Now this conflicts with what I said before, the primacy of existence. And this is the contrary idea, that existence is malleable, that if a group of people want to bend a fact, they can. They can change the nature of the things. Things aren't what they are what the group says they are. And this is a fundamental mistake, because it's in conflict with the basic axioms that are undeniable that I just stated. Now, the role of your consciousness is to know things, not how they are, as I said before. So, if there's an agreement by a certain group that the Earth is flat, it's not going to flatten out. Facts are stubborn. It will continue to be a sphere. Just because a group of people agree on something doesn't change the facts. It doesn't change the nature of the things. Things are what they are, independent of what anybody thinks or says. So that's why reality does not simply exist because of agreement. Reality exists independent of any agreement. If you close your eyes, you can't see the world. That doesn't mean that the world went away. It just means that you're not aware of it. So your consciousness is there to know reality, not to create reality. That's the basic point here. Facts are facts independent of any agreements or wishes. They are stubborn. You have to accept the fact that facts are facts, and then once you accept that fact, you can get on your way to knowing how things are and knowing what to do. But if you keep dreaming that your consciousness can create reality or determines the truth independent of the facts, you'll be lost. The other subjectivist view that Mike has advanced here is that two contradictory conclusions can both be true.
Jan, time is almost up.
Okay. If it's up, just tell me when it's up.
Yes, it is up. Yeah. Okay. 2 more minutes?
2 more minutes. He argues that two contradictory propositions can both be true. Now, this debate started because of email conversations and discussions we were having. Originally, he agreed that two contradictory conclusions could not be true. But then, on second thought, he revised his position to say maybe he was wrong when he said that they could not be true, that they both can be true. And he's advanced now a few examples of why he thinks two contradictory conclusions can both be true. Now, these examples that he's offered are not contradictory. They either are at a different time, so in order to, or a different sense of the word, or a different situation. So to say that something is contradictory is to say that something is the case and it is not the case in the same sense of the word, referring to the same time frame. So if it's two different situations, two different senses of the word, that's not a contradiction. In order for it to be a contradiction, it has to be referring to the same time frame in the same sense of the word, the same situation, claiming that it is and that it isn't. That's not possible, and that's because it violates the law of identity, the fact that things are what they are. Now, everything has certain characteristics. If you say that a thing has the characteristics and it doesn't, you're mistaken, because no thing has all the characteristics. So if you say that it has a characteristic and it doesn't, it's either on the list of the characteristics that the thing has, or it isn't. Everything has characteristics, things that you know about it and things that you don't. But one thing you know for sure, either a particular characteristic is on that list or it isn't. If you say it is and it isn't on the list, you just made a mistake. You contradicted yourself because you violated the law of identity.
2 minutes are up, Jan.
Okay, I'll take 2 more.
Okay.
He says there are no absolutes. Now, existence is absolute. There is no condition or limitation to the statement. Existence absolutely exists. There's no alternative to existence. So existence exists, it exists absolutely. There is no alternative. Things are absolutely what they are. They aren't sometimes what they are and other times what they aren't. They're always what they are. So there are absolutes, absolutely. And we'll discuss that, I guess, more. But this statement that there are no absolutes is self-contradictory. and therefore mistaken because it involves a contradiction. You are saying there are no absolutes, which is an absolute statement. Whenever you say there are no X, that's an absolute statement. There are no apples, there are no men with 17 heads. That's an absolute statement. So it's self-contradictory to say that something is an absolute, that there are no absolutes, that there are no absolutes. And when you say that statement, you're making an absolute statement. So either it is possible that absolute statements are true, like the one you're making, or it isn't. That's why it's self-contradictory. 2 plus 2 is always equal 4. Everybody knows that. The only way to change the meaning of that, or to try to argue the opposite, is to say that 2 doesn't mean 2. It means something else. So instead of 2 plus 2 equals 4, you say 2 apples, or 2 trees, or 2 dogs, or 2 cats, or 2 people.
Time is up, Jan.
Okay, so I'm finished. Questions? It's time for questions.
It's time for question now. Mike?
I thought Carlos, excuse me, but I thought the next step was we each have a 2-minute refutation.
No, the next step is you ask me the questions.
Yes.
Oh, then you change the rules.
No, it's in the format, Mike. Check it out.
Okay.
Yeah, Mike, that's what I got here. Yeah.
What do you have?
The questions come first.
The questions come first?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mike, it's the exact same format that we did with Friedman.
Oh, okay. Where am I reading that at then? Just go with it. Okay. Hang on one second. I was so ready for the refutation period. All right. So I'm ready to start.
Okay.
Let's see. Jan?
Yep, I'm here.
Do you believe in a creator?
What do you mean by a creator?
Some folks call him God. Different names.
Can you define what you mean?
A omnipotent power that created the universe and all that's within it.
And evaluates what we do and what we don't do, and
No, I don't want to add all that to it.
okay, well, no, I don't.
Okay.
I think the universe is eternal, and that things always have been, and there isn't some subjective consciousness that created everything.
All right. Do you agree that we all perceive things slightly different?
There can be differences in the way we perceive things. It has no effect on determining the truth or identity of the things that we perceive, because the truth of what identity of what we perceive is based on the interaction between our sensory apparatus and the facts of reality, and the facts of reality are a factor in that product, and so you always get, no matter what your sensory apparatus is, true information about real reality is always there. And so blind people can learn about the world and understand things, and deaf people can, and even colorblind people, and these are people with big distortions in their sensory apparatus. There's always, if you see that your sensory apparatus is a physical thing, and it's interacting, your perceptual sensory apparatus, and it's interacting with another physical thing, the outcome is necessarily one. There is no chance, and it always reflects true information about the thing you're seeing and also about your sensory apparatus.
Okay, was that a yes or a no?
That was a yes in one sense, in the sense that people do not see exactly the same thing. If you want to get very minute, there can be very minute differences, but it does not dispute the fact that they get real information about the world we live in, so they can come to exactly the same conclusions, like if you jump off a cliff, you're going to get hurt.
Okay, so I guess that was yes, people do perceive things differently, at least slightly. Do you conceive the idea, or do you agree with the idea that people have vast differences of experiences, and that those experiences are unique to them, thus creating what would be their own universe of experience?
No, there's an equivocation in that question as far as what you mean by universe. So you're using the word universe to mean two different things. When you say their own universe, in one, usually the word universe refers to everything that it is, that exists. And here you're using the word universe to refer to the mental content of a person when you say their own universe. So which are you talking about? The universe that exists, or the universe in the sense, metaphoric sense, of the mental content that's in each person's mind? Is it different? Is that what you mean?
Yes. Is it different and unique for them?
So you're not talking about the reality as it is, or the universe. You're talking about the mental content of a human being. Is it different from one human being to another?
Correct. Are you still there? I think we lost Jan, or lost.
Jan, are you there?
I'm here.
Yeah. Do you hear that, Mike?
Okay.
I think you're going into your fourth question now.
Yes. Do you agree that one can have two opinions in contradiction to each other, but they both can be true if separated by some time, even as little as a minute?
Yes, they can, because that's not a contradiction, like I've said about 3 times already. In order for it to be a contradiction, you have to say that it is the case and that it is not the case in the same sense of the word, referring to the same time frame. You keep giving me examples of situations where a different time frame, that's not a contradiction. If you say, yesterday it rained, today it's not raining, that's not a contradiction. But if you say, it's raining right now here, and it's not raining right now here, that's a contradiction, and that's not possible. That's a mistake.
Well, forgive me, Jan. I was just asking the question, and I wasn't, looking for a lecture of, what's the term I want? A lecture on how I've misbehaved in some way or another. I was just asking a yes or no question. Do you agree that if out in space, dropping an object, there will be a different reaction than dropping it on Earth?
Yes, I agree, because those are two different situations. And therefore, those two different situations, when the ball reacts differently, the object reacts differently, is not contradictory. There's no contradiction there. You have to say that something is the case and it's not the case in the same, referring to the same situation, in the same sense of the words, not in a different place, not by different people. Every example you've given so far is of that sort. They aren't really contradictory.
Okay, I wasn't referring to contradiction there, and I was just asking a yes or no question. So is the answer yes?
The answer is yes. The ball will, the object can behave differently in space than it does on Earth when you drop it.
All right. So with having an absolute, do you agree that the term encompasses that variables will not be allowed into the equation?
I don't know what you mean by that, Mike. Variables will not be allowed into the equation.
Okay, I'll reword it.
Previously, you talked about limits, parameters, conditions. Is that what you mean by variables? I don't know.
Yeah. Yes.
Reword it, because I don't really understand what you're asking.
I can reword the question. Do you agree for an absolute to exist, variables must not be permitted?
Well, I think what you're asking is, if you don't limit the statement to certain parameters or conditions, there cannot be an absolute. If that's what you're asking,
Correct.
then the answer is there absolutely can be absolutes. I gave you several examples. Existence absolutely exists. No conditions, no parameters. In all cases, it exists. And things are what they are. Always, there are no variables or parameters. A thing in every given moment is exactly what it is. Never is a thing what it isn't. It always is what it is. No conditions or limitations to that statement. It's an absolute statement. There are absolutes. And you're claiming that there is one, which is there are no absolutes.
Time is up now.
All right. So is the universe, the one we speak of in normal sense, limitless, or does it have a limit?
Actually, I don't know, because it's very big and I haven't been able to check everything out. But the universe is what it is. That I know. And it exists. And whatever it is and however it is, that's the way it is. So if you say that it is and it isn't, you contradicted yourself, you're mistaken.
Just asking questions, looking for answers, not lecture back. Yeah. Let me ask you, is it possible that the universe is finite and outside of it there is no existence?
If it is, I don't, as I said before, I don't know the facts about whether it's finite or infinite. As far as I can, it seems logical to me that it is eternal and it can't go out of existence or come into existence. Because if that were the case, then there would be nothing. If you went out of existence, it would be nothing, and nothing is nothing. And if there was first nothing, and then you say there was an existence, that's not possible, because nothing cannot do anything. So the logical conclusion is that the universe is eternal. Whether it's infinite or not infinite, I don't know.
Okay. So, do you consider yourself to be matter?
I consider myself and other human beings to be mind and body, integrated, an integrated mind and body. So I think all human beings have a body, they have a physical aspect, and they also have not catatonic. So I consider both facts of reality, the reality of human nature, that we have a mind and a body.
All right, so this mind and body are made up of material.
The mind, the human beings are made of matter, are physical, and this physicality is combined in such a way that we have certain faculties. One of these faculties is to be able to be aware of reality, to perceive reality, to understand reality, the reality that exists, and that's what we call our mind, and so our consciousness. So yes, but if you don't have a body, you cannot have a mind. That's a ghost.
So you can't exist outside of a body.
If there is no body, then you don't exist.
All right. Do you agree that one should not try to force their view on another?
Well, you mean use physical force to make somebody say unch and accept your view even though they disagree? No, I don't think you should do that. But I do think that it's perfectly good and helpful and useful to engage people intellectually and try to persuade them of what you think is true when they're amenable to doing it. If they aren't, then it's better not to.
All right. Moderator, I'm having such a good time asking questions. I haven't counted how many I asked.
You have one more to go.
Oh, okay. So, with matter, if you agree that matter is in motion, that electrons, neutrons, and whatnot are all in motion, what would happen to that matter if it stopped moving?
Well, that's a question for a physicist, not a philosophic question, actually. I don't know exactly what would happen, but, you know, one of the things that leads to mistakes here is that you say that the matter is in motion, and then you're talking about at a molecular level, which is basically kind of irrelevant to our everyday life. So if you're sitting still in your chair, you say, well, I'm not moving around, I'm still. But you say, no, you're full of motion. Well, that's just changing the context of what it means to be in motion. So to answer your question directly, if all the electrons and the molecules start moving, and I don't know exactly what the consequences would be, but if you want to know, I guess you should ask a physicist. By the way, that's not going to happen.
What's not going to happen?
That the molecules and the electrons are going to stop moving. Okay, my turn.
Okay, now it's your turn, Jan.
Can two contradictory propositions both be true when they are referring to the same situation, the words are being used in the same sense, and referring to the same time frame? And by contradictory, I mean, as I've said before, to say that something is the case and it is not the case in the same sense of the word, referring to the same time frame.
No.
They cannot both be true, right?
Correct.
Okay, good. So we're on the same page. So if you contradict yourself, you're necessarily mistaken.
No, maybe you're right now. Maybe you were right then, but now you're right. Time has passed.
Referring to the same time frame. Time has passed, but you're referring to the same time frame.
Yeah.
Okay. In our previous discussion, you said there are no absolutes. Then you clarified that you meant that there are no absolutes unless you limit the statement to certain conditions or parameters. My question is it true that reality absolutely exists No conditions, no limitations.
Your question is pregnant with a forever, or a forever at both extremes, from beginning to end. So before there was reality, there wasn't.
I didn't say that there was a. I'm not. The premise of my question is not that there was not a reality at some point and later there was. In fact, I told you before that I think existence is eternal. Let me repeat the question. Maybe you didn't understand it. In our discussion, you said there are. First, your position was when I said something about ethics or what you said, there are no absolutes. Then later you clarified and said that what you meant was that there are no absolutes unless you limit it to certain conditions or parameters. Then there are absolutes. That was your second position. My question is it true that reality, existence, absolutely exists?
Right
no
now,
conditions. I'm not, without setting any conditions or limitations to that statement. Under any conditions.
no.
So.
Because you're refusing to allow before reality existed.
You think there was a time when there was nothing?
Right.
And from nothing came something?
Correct.
So you think nothing can do something?
Cause, you see, you're looking at the universe as if everything has to be matter. I don't see it.
I'm just, you said nothing can make something. If nothing is nothing, how can it make something?
Nothing is not effect, nothing is cause.
Nothing can do something, can cause something?
Cause can cause something. Cause doesn't have to be effect. You perceive effect.
Well, we disagree on that. I think nothing can do nothing, and if it's nothing, it can't do something, it can't cause anything, it isn't anything. So, okay. Is everything absolutely what it is, no conditions or limitations?
Yeah, would you state that question again?
Is everything absolutely what it is, no conditions or limitations?
Everything is in flux, so everything is not what it is now is not what it is in a minute. It's different.
Right, but what it is now is what it is now, right?
If
so
you could
everything is absolutely what it is at any given moment.
Things are always changing. They're always in motion. You, your body, the ball, the coffee cup, everything's in motion. That glass of water.
Right. But my question, so your answer to my question, to see if I understood it, is that everything is not absolutely what it is.
Yeah, you can't even see exactly what it is because it's changing. It has an appearancy to you.
Yeah, but is it absolutely what it is, or it is not?
No, it's
at any given moment in time, whether you can see it or not see it, is it absolutely what it is?
No, it's always moving. It's always slightly different than what it is changing 1 micromillisecond, the smallest unit of time you could imagine. It is different than what it was that unit before.
Can something change if it isn't something specific?
What do you mean?
Well, you say that things can change. They're always changing. And I'm asking, if something changes, that means that first it was one thing, specific, it had an identity, and then it changed to another thing in the next millisecond or whatever. So when you say that things are changing, you're affirming that it was something at the point before it changed, and then it became something else specific when it changed. So
no.
so it's always what it is, That's not an exception to the rule that things are what they are. In fact, that is actually arguing for the fact that things are what they are.
No, a coffee cup is not going to change into a pen. But a coffee cup is not the same coffee cup a minute ago that it is now. It's been in motion. It's changed. It's not identical. It is quite similar, but not identical.
I understood that, but before it changed, was it something specific?
It was a coffee cup.
Right. It was something, and so it was what it was. Absolutely. At every moment in time, it is exactly what it is. So, isn't your answer then that things are absolutely what they are at any given moment?
They're not identical. A coffee cup 100 years old is not identical to what it was 100 years ago.
May I interject a minute?
Yes.
To be fair to both sides, there has been an exchange right now of different questions based on the same question.
Right.
So I have to consider that exchange as one question, right?
Right.
Okay.
Let me go to the next question.
Okay.
Is there a situation where a thing is not what it is?
Well, see, what it is always changing.
Right. But so your answer is yes or no. Is there a situation where a thing is not what it is?
It's still a coffee cup, but it's not identical to what it was a second ago. It's in motion.
That's fine, but is it a yes or a no? The answer to my question: is there a situation where a thing is not what it is in a particular moment in time? You say this thing is not what it is.
Yeah, that situation would be somebody's opinion.
What's your opinion about my question, which is there a situation where a thing is not what it is?
Yeah, that would be somebody's opinion of a thing.
So you think somebody's opinion of a thing is the same as a thing?
Opinion is a thing.
So your view is that somebody's opinion of a thing is a thing?
Yes.
So you don't distinguish between physical things and opinions?
No. There's a lot of questions, moderator.
Okay.
Okay, yes.
Another question. Under the previous scenario, well, okay, in our discussion, you defined an absolute as something that can have no other outcome. That's what you said an absolute was. If somebody chops off your head and puts you in a crematorium, burning your body until you are a pile of ashes, would there be no other outcome than your death?
What's your question?
I'll read it again. In our discussion, you defined an absolute as something that can have no other outcome. You remember? If somebody chops off your head and puts you in a crematorium, 5,000 degrees, burning your body until you are a pile of ashes, would there be no other outcome than your death?
Yeah, your body dead.
So you would be dead, right?
Your body would be.
Right. So you call that person somebody, would you say that that person is dead or not?
Their body's dead.
Okay. So there's no other outcome, so that's an absolute. You would absolutely your body would be dead because there's no other outcome.
Yeah,
so
but
that's another absolute for you. You said there were no absolutes.
And you set the parameters. You set parameters. You fix parameters, so you have an absolute outcome. I said no absolutes without parameters.
Did I fix a parameter when I said that existence absolutely exists?
Yes.
What was the parameter?
That you didn't allow for anything outside of this universe, nor before existence existed. You didn't allow for creation.
You think there was creation from nothing?
Yes.
Okay.
But see, you're not recognizing what nothing, the nothing I'm talking about. I'm talking about cause with potential to create that is not made up of matter.
But you say that it was nothing. How can you have any characteristics?
I'm using the term nothing. I'm using the term nothing to not mean atoms, electrons, and neutrons.
No, nothing is nothing. If it's nothing, it's nothing. Nothing doesn't mean something and then it has some characteristic.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
So if, I didn't say nothing is nothing and something is something. We gotta get that straight. So if you say it's nothing, it isn't anything. So it can't do anything.
Well, you're using the term nothing to refer to matter.
No, I'm using the term nothing philosophically.
Cause over something.
That it is nothing.
Cause is not nothing.
You think that there can be that nothing can cause something? Okay. Let me ask you a different question here.
One more question.
You said that reality exists simply because of an agreement. If there is no agreement that reality exists, would reality disappear?
Well, first, the answer to that with qualification is yes. And the qualification is that these nothings that you're referring to as nothing would be the spiritual essence of all creating, all creation. So I can see that we are not just bodies and minds, but we are spiritual beings, and that we create.
So you think that I'm sorry. You think that the spiritual creation is nothing, or is it something?
It's not matter as you look at things as
something.
That's matter. It's not matter.
But you say it's something or it's nothing.
It's something, not matter.
So it is something. So that's another contradiction. You say it's something and it's nothing.
Well, okay. I'm using your terms.
I have more questions. That's it.
I'm using your terms.
Okay.
It's not physical. You know, you want to use your terms there.
I didn't say anything about physical. I said it exists or doesn't exist. I said that faculty, your consciousness, your faculty to know, is not physical. And it exists. You can have faculties that depend on physicality that are not matter-based. You don't measure it in electrons.
We have agreement on that. We have agreement on that.
Okay.
Okay, gentlemen, time for the refutation, 2 minutes each. You begin now, Mike.
Oh, I go first?
Yes.
Okay. Well, Jan and I are maybe on the same page, or hopefully at least on the same book. What is ultimately important here is, of course, how we can use things in our existence while we're on this planet. And he made reference to some things that, you know, that's not important in the day-to-day living. I refer to people as having a universe of their own, and there's 7 billion plus universes. And we have to deal with that on a daily basis. And they see reality different. And people are entitled to see reality however they want to see reality. The idea that it's axiomatic that we see existence, and therefore existence is the axiom we start from, where I see no effect without cause. So to me it's axiomatic that there is a cause, and the effect comes from cause. Cause is not effect, so therefore if effect is material universe, matter, energy, space, and time, then there are different things. and so and not subject to the same rules, obviously. If things are in motion, that's why they continue through in time. If they stop, if these electrons and molecules would stop and not move anymore, then they would cease to exist. And that's how existence continues, is because it's in a constant state of flux. So, and when I say that absolutes don't exist, I don't say absolutes don't exist. I say absolutes can only exist if the parameters are fixed. And then in those fixed parameters, you can have absolutes. So there's no contradiction there. And if I say some people believe in God and some don't, there's also no contradiction there. That's not violating the concept. That, in fact, supports the idea of no absolutes. Unless you fix the parameters, then you have absolutes.
Okay. Go ahead, Jan.
I think we did make some progress in this discussion, and I appreciate the flexibility that Mike has shown. We have agreed that two contradictory conclusions cannot both be true when you're referring to the same situation in both cases and referring to the same time frame. So that's an important principle that we can use when we go to reason and find out if we're mistaken or not. If we contradict ourselves, we agreed that you must be mistaken, referring to the same time frame. Secondly, I think one of the reasons why we differ is that Mike seems to think that nothing can do something, but nothing is nothing. It's not physical or spiritual, it's nothing. So nothing cannot do anything. Now, this, in the discussion, that led to the contradiction that nothing was something. Now, something and nothing are mutually exclusive. Either it's something or it's nothing. It can't be both. I gave a few examples of absolutes. Now, and not only I, but Mike himself gave an example. His statement, "there are no absolutes," is an absolute. It's an absolute statement. It means there are none, never. There aren't any. No exceptions. There are no absolutes. That is an absolute statement. Now, I gave him other absolute statements that are also true. Existence absolutely exists. There's no exception to that. It isn't that it doesn't, sometimes it exists and sometimes it doesn't. It always exists. Things are always what they are. At any given moment in time, if they're changing, it doesn't matter. They change from one thing that is the way it is to another thing that also is what it is. They always, at any given moment, are what they are. And that is an absolute statement. So those are two easy examples of of absolutes that don't have any conditions or limitations to them. They're always true.
Time is up now.
I'd like my 2 minutes, one of my 2 minutes.
Okay, Mike.
Go ahead.
Take your minutes.
Go ahead.
All right.
In other words, you're going to take yes, 2 minutes for the refutation.
He wants to take his additional 2 minutes, the ones that I took before.
All right, great.
All right. Now, Jan keeps saying that I made the statement there are no absolutes, and that is not what I said. I said there are no absolutes unless you fix the parameters. That's quite different than there are no absolutes. So, and then there's something for nothing when complex. When you look at the physical universe, we think of it as matter, energy, space, and time. That's something. When you think of something that is not matter, energy, space, or time, but has the ability to cause all those things, in relation to referring it to matter, energy, space, and time, you would call it not that thing. It's not that thing. It is greater than that thing. It is beyond that thing. It is ultimate cause, where all matter, and the energy in space and time comes from. Those are quite different than saying it's and explaining this as a contradiction in my logic or my thinking. That nothing is something. It's beyond something. It's certainly not nothing. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mike. You have your other minute of refutation.
Well, that was enough.
It's his turn to reply to my refutation, right?
Yes, he has 1 minute for
Go
that.
ahead, Mike. You have another minute.
All right. Well, with the additional minute, all I can say is that what's important in the whole debate, and then we look at things and come to where we actually have agreement. And Jan points out contradictions with politicians, where, for example, the redistribution of wealth. When you interview a politician and they say, oh, do you believe in the redistribution of wealth? They say no. And then you turn around and you say, well, what about Medicare? And they might say, well, you know, that's because old people and they need this and whatnot. And you're showing the contradiction. And there certainly is a contradiction in their philosophy there. You know, I would say that, you know, to separate something out, I would say, yeah, I believe in redistribution of wealth, and I believe in the redistribution of wealth on a personal basis. You exchange your money for some product I have, and we're exchanging and redistributing wealth, and there's no force, there's no theft involved in it. These are the concepts, whether you believe that subjectivism is superior to objectivism.
Time is up, Mike.
All right, we want to nail.
You want more time?
Yeah, I can go. Yeah, I got another 2 minute thing left to me too. Let me finish.
You have 2 more left.
Oh, I have 2 more?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and to go on with that and how we deal with one another, and it's the idea that, you know, I personally believe that everybody is entitled to whatever subjective reality they want to have, and that their universe is theirs, and I don't need to change their universe, but they, within that, whether you believe in objectivism or subjectivism, you should agree wholeheartily that one cannot force their reality onto someone else. No, one cannot force their will upon someone else through the legislator, and take someone else's property and redistribute it to someone else, or to take control of one's body and to demand what one put in one's body, or whether or not one can buy eyeglasses without the doctor giving a prescription every year before you can buy a pair of eyeglasses, and controlling our existence. I think that we all ought to embrace that understanding that we do own ourselves, whether we believe in a creator or not, and that legislators are only supposed to deal with violations that we place upon one another. And so we should really stick with that as the bedrock to what we're after. And if somebody wants to believe in pink lizards crawling around this floor as their pets, that doesn't cause you or me or any harm. And it's those guys that think that they can use force to make us pay for someone else's freight. And Jan and I agree that we should pay for our own freight, and that there's a big difference between whether or not they take our money to give to someone else, or they take our money to pay for something that we've already taken a benefit from, like the military or a road or something like that, or a judicial system. So I think that's what the focus ought to be on, no matter what a person's persuasion is. What is the role of government?
Okay, each one of you has 2 minutes left for your extra time.
Now is it my turn to give a 1 minute?
That's your turn for the 1 minute to reply for to the refutation.
I appreciate Mike's willingness to discuss this issue, and but I disagree on some basic things. Let me say what I agree on first. I agree that people are entitled to their views, and I respect their views, but I think it's good to interchange and discuss things when you disagree. Something that I don't agree with is that nothing can be greater than something. So because nothing is nothing, it's not physical or not physical, it's nothing. So Mike says that nothing is beyond something, it's even greater than something. So it's not only something, but it's a big something. It's a something that can create the universe. It's a something that can do everything. Well, that's a real big something. That's not a nothing. That's something. Anyway, there's equivocation in Mike's use of the word universe. Sometimes he uses universe to mean a person's mental state or the component of your mind.
Excuse me, Jan. You want to use 2 more minutes?
No.
Okay, time is up. Now is the time for the summary. You got each one of you 3 minutes. You begin, Mike.
All right. So I think we've come somewhere in this debate and come to a closer understanding. And I think, you know, when we talk, it's just maybe a little bit of semantics. I think Jan and I both agree that absolutes can occur, that absolutes will occur in my explanation of how they occur when the parameters are fixed. So, you know, for example, a game has its barriers, its parameters fixed, and so when something occurs, then X, Y, Z occurs. Jan used an example of me being burned to death, head cut off, etc., and that the body would be dead, you know, but those are parameters that put in place there. So to explain that, the idea that 2 and 2 being always 4, the term always takes away the concept or the limitation that the parameters can be changed, and so the parameters can be changed and always wouldn't apply. If the parameters remain the same, always does apply. Again, if you got 2 of the same thing added together, you're going to have 4 of that thing. But if you have 2 cats and 2 dogs together, you're not going to have 4 cats. You're not going to have 4 dogs. So, or if you let the time variable come into the game, you don't fix the time, then one person, a female added to a male person, you know, 5 years later, you might have 5 persons. So 1 and 1 is not always 2 and those kinds of things. The idea he keeps referring to, see, I explained using the term no thing or nothing to mean no thing. So God is not a thing. God's not matter, energy, space, and time. God is the creator of those things. So it's certainly something much greater than those things, but in our terminology as human beings, we see everything in the terms of, or too many of us do, in the terms of matter, energy, space, and time. We see matter, we see effect, and we don't perceive the concept that all effect comes from some sort of cause. And if you look at everything that man made, you don't have to see the man making it. You see the effect, you say, somebody made that. Somebody caused that to occur. I look out and I see a tree, and I see an ocean, and I see a mountain, and I have the same logic to say something created that, and therefore it's there. I see the effect. I don't see the cause, but I see what cause has affected. And so when I say cause is no thing, I'm not saying it's, I'm saying it's not a fact. So to demonstrate to people that look at everything as it exists, so there's the basic axiom. I say nothing exists unless it has a creator, and that's the basic axiom I operate off of. So with that in mind, I think that's about 2 minutes.
That's 3 minutes, yeah.
I got 3 minutes?
You have 2 more minutes if you wish.
Oh, the extra 2? No, I think I've made my piece.
Okay. Okay, Jan, it's your turn now.
This debate has been good because we've been able to have a cordial debate. I appreciate that. Let me point out a few things that I think we disagree on. first you say that nothing can be greater than something. And so I think when you're saying that God or a first cause is greater than something, then it is something. It's not nothing. I think you're saying that God, or this first cause, is an absolute. But at the same time you say there are no absolutes because there isn't any limitation or condition to God. It's eternal. He's an absolute. So that's another contradiction. You say there are no absolutes unless you limit it to certain conditions or limitations. God would be another example of a concept, a statement of a truth that does not have any limitations or conditions, and therefore it violates your previous statement that there are no absolutes unless there are limitations or conditions to the statement. Now, an important equivocation that's occurring here is on the use of the word universe. You say at certain points that universe means everything that's physical out there. But then later you say that a person's universe may be different from another person's universe, meaning their views, their mental content, not their physicality, their mental content. That's an equivocation. So that's why it leads you to a false conclusion when you use the word universe to mean two different things in two different parts of the argument. Really what you're saying is that universe in one point is something physical, and another point you're saying that it is not something physical, it's mental content, it's your views, and that can't be either. You use the word in one sense or you use another, and if you use it in two different senses, you're equivocating, and that will lead you to a mistake. Things are what they are, and existence is what it is, and no consciousness, either an individual or by agreement, which is what you said before. If people agree that reality exists, then it exists. But reality, existence, does not depend on people agreeing. It depends on nothing because it's independent. As I said before, primacy of existence means that reality is independent of any consciousness. It is what it is. So your mind cannot bend reality, bend existence. It's not malleable. In order to learn, you have to conform to what things are. Then you can do like Francis Bacon said, and all of science does. Nature, to be commanded, must be obeyed. In other words, you have to focus on how things are. Facts are not malleable. They
Time
don't.
is up, Mike. Jan, but you can take 2 more minutes if you wish.
Thank you. I'll take them. Facts are not malleable. They are stubborn. You have to, and no consciousness, either an individual or a group, can change them. So I would say that in this discussion you have pointed out many absolutes that you claim are absolute, and at the same time without any specification of conditions or limitations, like your concept of first cause. You say that's an absolute. It wasn't caused by anything. It's not limited by anything. There's no conditions to it. Your statement that there are no absolutes unless there's limitation and conditions, that's an absolute. You're saying that there are no absolutes, and at the same time, that's an absolute statement when you say there are no, and later there are. And I gave you a few examples of absolutes. Things are always what they are. In every given moment when they change from one thing to another. At every moment, they are what they are. Existence always exists, and it doesn't come into being and come out of being, because if there wasn't anything, and that means not just physical, any kind of thing, if there was nothing, then there's no God either. There's nothing. And so you cannot get something from nothing, which is why we discussed that. Nothing cannot have any cause. Now, if there was something before, then that can cause another thing. But if there's nothing, you cannot go anywhere. That's why the logical conclusion is that the universe is eternal and existed always. Now you say, how can that be? Because it had to be created. Well, the same way that you say that God could have been also, because how did God not have a cause? Well, you have no problem with the fact that God has no cause, right? So you shouldn't have any problem with the fact that the universe has no cause either. It was always there. There's always been something. Because in order to have something now, you have to have something that made that thing. You cannot start with nothing, because if you start at any point in time, there's
That's
nothing.
the end.
It can have no effects. Okay, well, thank you, and next time we'll deal with 2 plus 2 always equals 4.
How about I get my 2 minutes in
Oh,
now?
you can't do that. It's in your turn.
No, there's no absolute. There's no absolute.
You had to. That's why Carlos asked you if you could you wanted the 2 minutes, because you have to use your additional time during your turn. That's in the rules.
I thought there were no absolutes.
No, I thought there were absolutes. But you know, Mike, it's been a pleasure discussing this with you, and I wish all debates were like this, cordial, and any amount of aggressivity that I may show in the debate is directed towards the ideas. It's not directed towards the individual. You in particular, I think it's outstanding that you are willing to do the debate and discuss the issues, and I wish every other human being was the same.
I would like to add, by the way, thank you very much to both of you. And it was really a very interesting and illuminating debate. You are two kinds of guys that I would like to have a beer with, by the way. Anyway.
All right, send me the plane ticket.
So, gentlemen, I look forward to another get together.
Okay,
thank you very much.
I go off the air now so that it finishes. We can continue to talk off the air.